Title of the sermon was, "What is your worth?" Question mark. If you think of that in the context today of a worldly view, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What is your worth? Employers would put it as to what your value is how much work you can do for as little as possible, cost. Your idea would be how much money you could make while doing said work. Go in other contexts, how much you can make retirement, how much you'll be making monthly, or like a lot of places, I know at my job, they right away, they have life insurance, etc. So in the world context today, your value, you're almost worth more dead in some contexts, sadly enough. So if you look in a worldly view, your worth is nothing but silver or gold. And even Christ had a price like that put on him. But what we always need to remember is our value is not of this earth, not of a worldly idea. So that's why with scripture reading, which I'll come back to, in those days, they had a lot of different currency than what we had now. Back then, everything was silver or gold. And of course, copper and bronze for some of it for the lower value. Even then, and there's a parable I'll read, Christ even had to explain things to people to get them to understand a heavenly point of what our reward is, what our value was, by using the same thing of what is our worth in a worldly sense, money. Now, one thing I never understood, you can think of it, the Bible can say it, but to really understand the context of how insignificant it is, you really can't tell until you actually see them for yourselves. So, I'm a coin collector, I love history as well. I did some research, found coins from that era. And I'll hold them up. Hopefully we can get a good view for the people that aren't here so they can kind of see how small and insignificant these coins are. And I'm going to pass them around. I'll start on one side one and one the other. This is, on this side starting, is actually a widow's mite. And I think many people know the story of a widow's mite. All the rich people putting in their money thinking they're so great, their value, look at what I'm worth. I can put in so much money into the coffer. And it wasn't until the widow put in her only 2 widow's mites that Christ said she had given more than anybody else. Was he really talking about a monetary value or a spiritual? She was putting all her trust and faith by being able to put that in there, knowing that Christ would provide. On this side, I'll start with this. This is actually a denarius. Now we know that has been used in the Bible many times. And I'll read some of those at which it is used. When you see that, and that is made of silver, and significance about that is actually from Vespasian. That is Emperor Vespasian's coinage there, which was the one that actually tore down the temple in Jerusalem. That was when, of course, he was only a general. So I'm going to start with some of the stories. I got a couple other coins to hand around. Of course, they're not as old. I couldn't find them, but I'll get to that in a bit. So I just want to read first a story about the parable of the workers in the vineyard. I'm going to start with just verse 8. It'll be Matthew chapter 20, verse 8 through 16. So when evening had come, the owner of the vineyard said to the steward, "Call the laborers and give them their wages, being with the last to the first. And with those came who were hired about the 11th hour, they each received a denarius. But when the first came, they supposed that they would receive more, and they likewise received a denarius. And when they had received it, they complained against the landowner, saying, These last men had worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us, who have borne the burden in the heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few are chosen. Back then, an entire day's wage was a denarius. That simple silver coin, not bigger than a modern-day dime, was what they made an entire day's wages. That was their value then. So that just puts an idea of how things have changed over the years. Of course, I can't explain it as well as Sean Boonstra, but he had a good series with the Revelation series, and he touched on that with the third seal, or the third horse. And I'm going to read that one, and that's Revelations chapter 6, verses 5 and 6. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, Come and see. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. That amount of food, wheat or barley, is not enough to live on for a day. Now, if you think in the context of today, what a denarius would be equal in value to would not be enough to live on. Right there just even proves when you're going through the dark ages, it was even worse. People in a day's wages couldn't even afford enough to eat, making this prophecy true. But if you look at what we're facing today, we're almost starting to look at like we're going to be facing that again. Once again, the world saying, how much are you really worth? Thankfully, in a sense, we have Christ, of course, that has a much better value on us. Even though he was put on his head a price. Of course, the 30 pieces of silver that was put on his head, not an easy coin to come by, because that is much more widely known, and of course, people think they can put a higher monetary value on it when you do find them. So I had to kind of go with coins that are similar in size. These are slightly smaller. This is from the early 1900s, 1908, 1907, a $50 silver. And these are slightly smaller than what just one of the 30 pieces of silver were. And I'll hand these around just so you can get kind of a actual hands-on feel of what the size of one of the coins that Judas would have gotten for turning Christ in. Yes. Yep. Now just think, 30 of them, if the denarius has gone all the way around, I'll take the denarius, hand that up. So you see the size of that denarius versus the size of one of them. Now, so a denarius was an entire day's wage. The 30 pieces of silver is 4+ times size of that. And he received 30 of them. They figured on an average of today's value just in the silver would have been around $400 to $600, depending upon the exact size of the coins. To then, it would have been at least 120 days' wages just to turn Christ in. That's the value that the world put on Christ, on his head, just to turn him in, because he turned their world upside down. He was challenging the world in the same sense of what we're supposed to do today. As we see the world getting more and more corrupt and evil, we look at our value as we're still free in a sense and can work. But just think of the value they're going to put on our heads, what will be worth to them for them to be able to stop us. Christ was one person. We are how many now? A church, the remnant. So the world, in a sense, they'll see us as even a bigger threat. And you're seeing that today. So that puts quite into context, if they're willing to put that much value on Christ's head to stop him, what will they do to stop us? Thankfully, if you think about it though, world value, any of that, has absolutely no meaning to Christ. It should have no meaning to us. And we shouldn't even worry about it, have any fear of it. Whether it be 30 pieces of silver, $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, like what they're trying to add to the deficit of this country, it shouldn't matter how much they put at a value on our heads. It shouldn't matter. Because Christ has already paid a value much higher than what any worldly value could ever be made. Not even the world's economy combined can equal the price he paid for each and every individual that believes in him. And each and every individual on this earth, whether they choose to believe in him or not, he still paid a higher price. And that's where I go back to the scripture reading in 1 Peter. And I'm going to take it to verse 19 as well this time. Knowing that you were not redeemed with corruptible things like silver or gold, from the aimless conduct received by tradition from your fathers. As you see, money, silver, and gold has just been the way of the world for generation after generation. A mindset, in a sense, is almost another thing we have to combat to get people to understand. Money is worthless in heaven. Silver and gold is worthless in heaven. They use it to pave the streets. That we know the New Jerusalem, as it's described, the streets will be paved with gold. So what value does gold really have to God? Verse 19, but with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. Christ paid for each individual on this earth with his own blood. Now I know today in the worldly sense, some people, they don't understand the value of blood, what that really means. And maybe that's another thing, that when people in this world do come with questions, which we know there are many out there now that know Christ is coming soon and have questions, when we teach them about Christ and his love and how he died, teaching them about how he shed his blood and what it meant to shed his blood might be something to teach them as well. So they know there's no monetary value on this earth which could equal what he did. In the back of my Bible, it has some definitions, so I'm going to read the definition of blood, which would have been the understanding of that time and of the Old Testament. Blood, the life-giving fluid of the body. In the Old Testament, it was regarded as the seat of life. But because shed blood signifies death, the word is used of both life and death. Blood was the understanding then that without blood, you had no life. That with blood was the only way to have life. So when he shed his blood, he literally shed his life from his body for us. The ultimate sacrifice that anyone could ever give to protect his people that he loves. So in the trying times, as things get tougher in this world, just remember that. Not your possessions, your money, not any value on this world means anything in heaven. And it means nothing to Christ. Look at, he even says to leave your possessions behind when he comes. Not to worry about grabbing things, not to worry about your storehouses, storing food or anything. Trust in him because he's already paid the ultimate value. So nothing on this earth has any value. Only him. When we remember that, we'll be able to better understand and remember that as the trying times come, one who paid with his own blood a value greater than anything of this earth is not just going to sit idly by while you're being tortured or chased. He will be with us always because of the price he paid for us. He won't just sit idly by and let us suffer because he gave his own blood. So we are his people. So he will always be there with us because of that value he made us worth in heaven. So I want you to take that thought, and I'm going to read one last thing. It's a chapter in Psalms that when people are having questions, trying times, seeing that the world is getting chaotic, at the very least, I've given this verse to family and friends for them to read, just to remember. And it's from Psalms 91. Safe and abiding in the presence of God. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him I will trust. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra. The young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. because he has set his love upon me. Therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. David wrote that. And we know he was far from perfect, no different than us today. But yet, even before Christ's sacrifice, God took care of him, an unperfect person. Christ sacrificed his blood, so that should give you even more reassurance that he will protect you even more so. So please, and that's what I ask, is that everybody takes that with them to heart and remembers that as times of this world do get more perilous. Thank you.